So I'm going to start with just a minute for each of you to introduce your own backgrounds and why you think buildings are such an interesting area of work, and then we'll get into some interesting questions. Can I start with you, Anne?
Sure. Let's see. I'm a sole practitioner. I have a green building consulting firm, and I have a very diverse base of clients, from homeowners to professional organizations, architecture firms, building firms, developers, investors, product manufacturers, public agencies, and utilities. And I've spent most of my career primarily in education and advocacy. So I spent the first 15 to 20 years in my professional career as an architect, and then went back to graduate school because my sort of lifelong passion for eliminating waste and for the environment, I found a home in green building back in the early 90s. And in all the time intervening, I've been working to change the way we're building, particularly the way mainstream home building is happening in this country, because there are just a gazillion things wrong with it, from our land use patterns to community structure to the structures themselves. So there's enormous opportunity there, and it's my area of expertise, and so I get to do everything that I like to do.
Now, Anne, I think you missed a little bit in that intro. Weren't you the founder of something called Lead for Homes?
I was the, yes, thanks, Peggy. Not the founder. The Lead for Homes is a program of the U.S. Green Building Council, as many of you probably know. And I chaired the development of Lead for Homes for the 4 years leading up to pilot, after serving a couple of years before that on the steering committee, and many years after that implementing and continuing to refine the program. Thank you.
So Kevin Surace, can you give us a short intro of yourself and what are you
Sure,
doing?
I'm CEO of Surace Materials. Surace Materials is a company that has 6 plants now in North America, plus software development around the world. We bring to market products and services specifically targeted at driving down energy usage in both the operations of the built environment as well as the manufacturing of the materials. We've done, our products and services are in about 70,000 buildings today, or structures, including homes and commercial, but we're probably best known for the Empire State Building retrofit, 6,514 windows, 26,000 panes of glass, all replaced, and we did something very unique, reused all the glass, which has never been done in the history of ever, as far as we know. We built a factory on the 5th floor, processed all the glass there, put it back up overnight, and saving right now about $410,000 a year in energy cost. In fact, we replaced dual pane windows there. They were already dual pane, which is a longer conversation on why dual pane doesn't save energy, but we made them 4 times better, a 400% improvement over dual pane. So we do a lot.
I think there's a Discovery Channel Powering the Future series that covers that. I don't know
Yeah,
if
there's a
you've seen
Discovery Channel. There's also on PBS this coming Friday, Planet Forward is doing a feature on the Empire State Building retrofit, and specifically the glass. There's been a lot of shows on that.
It's really fascinating to watch actually live.
Well, what's amazing is you could take a 1931 building, and if you could do it here, you could do it anywhere. 1931 building and replace the glass, and the glass in that building is only about 30% coverage, so it's not very high, and still get that kind of CO2 impact and savings. If you can do it there, you can do it in homes, you can do it in buildings like this. In fact, you can do it virtually everywhere.
No, I'm sorry, Kevin, but I think you missed something in your bio as well.
Is this part of your modus operandi here? You hope that we miss something so you can bring it up?
I think, weren't you Inc. Magazine Entrepreneur of the Year recently?
I was Inc. Magazine's Entrepreneur of the Year. That is, which is an amazing honor. Here's the important thing I think the important part of that. Most of the time, Entrepreneurs of the Year have been taken from the traditional technology sector or some other sector. It's also the first time that I think this sector of really addressing the environmental issues around buildings has ever had that kind of awareness. And this world is all about awareness. Actually, there's someone in the room. Sylvia Earle, one of my heroes, is sitting right here. Does everyone know who Sylvia is? Because she's been driving awareness.
Ocean Goddess.
Yeah.
Ocean Goddess.
I mean,
Sylvia, could you stand up, please?
Sylvia has been driving
Yeah.
awareness about the oceans for decades. And what we have here, to a great extent, I know Anne's going to agree with this, is an awareness problem in this space. And we're all working through how we get past that. And she's been working at her area with oceans for decades, and finally, over the last handful of years, there's some more awareness about the fish and the issues. And by the way, this is all related because the CO2 from powering these lights, fortunately not much, they've changed the lights to fluorescence, as you can see, but powering the lights and powering the heat and cooling in buildings like this generates CO2, which is leading to acidification of the oceans. So this is a terrible, horrible circle that we need to stop.
But Kevin, what I really want to know is, did that get you a centerfold in Cosmopolitan like Scott Brown?
Well, it didn't get me one in Playgirl, let me tell you that. No, and I didn't get one in Cosmopolitan either. No, we don't need any centerfold.
Okay.
If there's going to be a centerfold of anything, I hope it's of the
awareness.
building.
I was just following up. Okay. Priscilla, what do you do?
Okay, well,
I don't know if it's on.
yes. Okay, so last year actually I was a student just like you, sitting in the audience, and my commitment, well, first about my background, I'm studying architecture and environmental studies, so I founded this nonprofit organization called White Tops, and what we do is we paint roofs white to help reduce the effects of urban heat island, so that saves the residents energy, it keeps their home cool, and it's sort of an indirect effect. By keeping them cool, they are able to, they tend to use less energy for air conditioning, and then that helps reduce the fuel usage, and that helps reduce carbon emissions. So that's a sort of indirect negative loop that we're tackling right now. We're tackling it from the source. And how I came up with this idea was actually really simple. I was sitting on the train just looking outside the window, and you could see the tops of the roofs. And in New York City, a lot of our rooftops are black tar. And so it's kind of common sense, at least for me, that if you, let's say you have a dark t-shirt in the summer, it gets really hot. It's hotter than if you wear a white t-shirt. So that I applied that knowledge with my background into that, and that's how I came up with this.
Priscilla, can I ask you, does hot pink and Easter bunny yellow work as well as white, or?
Wait, what did you say?
Hot pink.
Hot pink.
And Easter bunny yellow. Could you use those on a roof?
You could,
That
if
is
you
more
want.
reflective, yes.
There are certain applications that you can put on the roof. So if you want a hot pink roof, you can.
Okay, great.
But you can apply something on top of that will make it very reflective.
Awesome. That's really all I wanted to know about the rooftops. So, so Anne, I read one of your blog posts. You're a big blogger, I understand.
Not as big as I should be, but
Oh,
I
well,
do blog
There's
occasionally.
only so many hours in a day.
Exactly.
You can start tweeting, microblogging.
I like that.
Okay.
It suits
But
my
don't
lifestyle.
tweet from stage. I think we talked about this
Right.
earlier.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Not,
Kevin,
not
he
appropriate,
doesn't
not
get to
PC.
Not appropriate.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So you were talking
That's
about...
not tweeting, that's cheating.
Yeah. You were talking about lighting. Can you talk a little bit about the frustrations that you observed in the lighting industry?
You know, I always love it when somebody prompts me for one of my favorite rants. Okay.
Short rant,
mini rant, micro rant. Oh, a number of years ago, I was
124
working on-
characters.
It's like, how about a minute and a half? A few years ago, I was working on remodeling my own house for the umpteenth time. And this time I wanted to replace all the lighting, and it was right after we'd had a new version of Title 24 enacted, which here in California, those are our energy regulations. And I thought, oh, great, we've got stricter lighting standards, so I'm going to be able to find better lighting, more energy efficient lighting than I did when I last looked for lighting X number of years prior. So I happily went out to all my local lighting showrooms and walked around and asked, okay, so where are your Energy Star fixtures, and where are your low efficacy fixtures? Where are your LEDs? Where are your compact fluorescents? And pretty much the universal response was either, duh, or, oh, it's those two over there. And I thought, what the heck?
Out of 1,000.
Yeah, thousands. So the lighting industry, this is an awareness issue and an institutional
issue.
momentum issue, it's a supply issue, but it's mostly a mental issue, is that the lighting industry has really no interest in addressing our real energy needs. Now, I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but the point is that given what we know about the impacts of lighting, which Kevin's already alluded to, the opportunities for improving environmental performance with lighting, the attempts to address them at the design level have been pathetic and lamentable. So here's a great opportunity for students because it's a light fixture.
Ding, light bulb went off my head,
bulb.
yes.
Yes, preferably an LED or a CFL light bulb. Right. But it's what you put it in, right? If you're a design student, you know, design matters. People won't use badly designed things. Kevin and I had battles early on. I said, I love your windows, Kevin, but the frames, work on the frames. So they've worked on the frames.
Hot pink, Kevin.
Hot
that's
pink
right.
is the deal.
I was
Hot pink
thinking
frames.
Easter Bunny yellow,
Easter
really.
Bunny yellow, Martha blue.
But the point is people care about design. We know that buildings that we love, we will make better, and we will live in, use them, benefit by them for a very long time. So this is a great example of a potential student project with potentially enormous implications.
Yeah, let me comment on something that Ann said. Aesthetics absolutely matter, whether it's home or whether it's business. Aesthetics, in the end of the day, will outrule energy savings. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's right. It is true. I don't like the latch on this little thing, so I'm going to go with this thing that doesn't save any energy over here, and it's over. It's over. So you got to, you know, what we say about anything that's going to save a lot of energy in a building is it has to perform as well or better than what it replaces. It has to look as good or better than what it replaces, and it has to have a rapid ROI, a rapid return on investment, and that's a really big theme. I'm sure we'll get into, but the net result of, I think, learning over 70,000 projects is the number one question we get from a customer, commercial or residential, is how long will it take to get my money back on this? And if the answer is, well, you won't get your money back, but you're doing something good for the environment, the market's this big, and it hasn't been getting bigger, because when the economy is tough, it gets smaller. So
it's got to look hot, is what you're saying.
No, if you want the big market, you're going to get your money back in X number of years or months. And that's when people light up and go, okay, well then, if I'm going to get my money back that quickly, what does it look like? Does it look as good as what I'm replacing? Does it? And now you have a business.
Well, and that's a good point too, because ROI matters, but emotion matters. And so I think it's understanding the interplay between emotion and the more rational side. Cost and do I love it?
I don't know if I agree with that. What happened to form follows function? I think as an architect, a lot of our choices, what we decide on, we decide on the function first. If it performs well, if it's energy efficient, we tend to lean towards that rather than the aesthetics.
Oh no, you would wish that were the case.
An architect wants to lean towards that. However, they're not paying the bill. The person who pays the architect says, that's interesting, slice 20% off the cost of that building. And you know the first things to go are the things that save energy. It's the first thing. They get value engineered out.
So they have to look hot, they have to price low, right? So let me though say that in China, one of the corporations that we work with is Philips Lighting. And it's interesting, in the last 12 months, they've launched a couple hundred lighting stores that are like IKEAs all over China. You can walk in and look at sort of rooms, different styled rooms with different lighting patterns. And then of course you can buy Philips lighting. I wonder if we could brainstorm a little bit with the students in the room here, what students can do to maybe help create a solution, a design solution. You're from Parsons, maybe we can get a group of kids from Parsons and create a website to show different lighting options.
Well, I'd love to see a lighting competition. I think it'd be wonderful. In fact, Philips has some great new lamps out. For those of you who aren't in the building industry, if we're in the building industry, we call things other people call light bulbs, those are lamps, and things that most people call lamps. I don't know what you call them in the lighting industry, but they're not lamps.
Luminaires.
Luminaires
Well, no, those are fixtures.
Okay.
So, I mean standing lamps. Anyway, it's very goofy. But anyway, we call them lamps, those things that you screw in or plug in. And I think it'd be wonderful to see what kind of design innovations we could get using some of the most efficient new
ding,
luminaires.
ding, ding. But you guys should be writing notes for next year's commitments, right?
Absolutely.
So, Kevin, you said that you wanted to save the world and help your company make $1 billion while doing it. How does buildings help save a world?
Well, first of all, I have a rule that if you can't make big businesses in this space, then we will never impact the CO2 on this planet. Because you're not going to do it with just government regulation. You're not going to do it with NGOs because they have a limited amount of resource. That is, you have to be able to bring products to market that absolutely have a huge impact on the energy usage, the CO2, mercury, all the other things we're trying to do in buildings today, VOCs, et cetera. And you have to do that profitably or else the company won't be in business 2 years later. No, we're not profitable. No, we're not. No, we're not. But we've decided to fund growth. So that's a choice as a private company you get to do. Well, at some point in its public company history, should we get there, yes, you would have to be profitable. But in fact, during a certain period of a company's growth, you can be purposely unprofitable to drive growth. So you're actually funding growth. So if you're we're a venture-funded company. We've raised about $150 million. Like I said, 6 plants, et cetera. We've chosen to fund growth because we can get money to fund that growth, and that growth is important. At some point, that growth needs to turn into high-margin profitability.
Why have you chosen buildings to save the world with?
Well, great question. So when you look at the entire pie of CO2, 52% is tied to the built environment. 40% to operate our buildings, 12% to make our building materials. Only 9% of that pie is passenger cars. I'm going to say it again. 9% cars, 52% tied to buildings.
This is in the U.S.?
No, this is worldwide. That's the worldwide stat. And the U.S. is slightly different. We're larger on cars, about 20% cars, 19% cars or so. This is passenger cars, not including other transportation. But this is really critical. Number two, lots of people going after the car issue and doing it, with everything from hybrids to electrification. I drive an EV, so we love EVs. Great direction. Not perfect, but certainly a good direction to go in. So there's a lot of money being thrown at that and virtually nothing at buildings. I mean, I've been going, Ann and I have probably been coming and talking, and Van Jones and others at events for 5 or 6 or 7 years, some of us longer, and barely have we seen some movement. I mean, barely. There's 5 million commercial buildings in the U.S. alone, 25 million worldwide. There's 110 million homes. Of those, the ones that are highly energy efficient, a few percent. And this is after not just a few years of us talking, but arguably work since the 70s that started doing this, and still we're a few percent into it. We can take even LEED Platinum buildings today with our best technology and our best software technology that manages buildings and make them 30 to 50% more efficient than LEED Platinum. And LEED Platinum is the best standard we've got today, and we can get even more efficient than that.
How do you do that?
Oh, there's a lot of ways. So we've got a platform called Surace Energy Manager that comes in and takes over the, for instance, on college campuses, we did Santa Clara University. We came in and took over the management of all the systems and run all the systems through algorithms instead of people. Now, we love people. We're all people. It just turns out that people can't deal with thousands and thousands of data points coming in a day and do anything with that. But software can. So we can drive 15 or 20% savings in virtually every building around the world just by running all the systems through software algorithms instead of having people run the buildings. It's just amazing.
I want to comment on that opportunity too. One of the things that I see in the residential industry, which by the way, we actually have at least two building industries, probably 3 or 4. Non-residential buildings, residential buildings, civil infrastructure, and probably something else I'm overlooking.
Industrial.
Yeah.
You got factories.
Yeah, I sort of think that as that part of non-res. But yeah, there are all sorts of segmentation. Point is, they're very different industries, and while we share a lot of common things in principle and general approaches, there are many specifics that differ. So if you're going into building, it's probably going to be a choice, residential or one of these others. In residential construction, one of the largest opportunities that we see, because it's one of the largest problems, is actual quality of execution. So we're not doing basic stuff right. We're not air sealing and insulating buildings properly. And this is not rocket science. It's just dumb. And it's because we have, there are a lot of institutional barriers to affecting change. And this is something Kevin and I have also talked a lot about. We have a very mobile workforce. We have a workforce that is decreasing in its education over time. We have a workforce whose English language capability is decreasing over time, and since management is almost always English speaking, that creates real barriers to getting the work done. So there are a number of things that we can fix that aren't even really about technology. They're just about having better, much better, dramatically better penetration of very, very basic ideas and processes.
And can I ask you, though, when you split the building sector into those different segments, which uses the most energy?
It's about 50-50. So we have millions of homes, each using a bit of energy, and then we have thousands of commercial and industrial buildings, each using larger amounts of energy. The net effect is the two sectors are about even in energy use.
So Priscilla, when you decide which buildings to paint, hot pink, how do you choose?
Well, it depends.
Sorry, white.
Well, we go through a process where we contact the owners, and then we'll try to tell them about our cause and all the benefits that they can get money back, how long's the payback time, we tell them about how it preserves the life of their roof, and if they agree to it, we have inspectors take a look at their roof, and I mean we pick residential, commercial, so it's not limited.
Pick it by roof size based on a Google Map view, or how do you?
We do use like Google Map or Bing. Sometimes it's a little bit outdated, but that is.
Just go for the biggest roof, flat roof that you see.
If it's a commercial building, then we go with the bigger roofs. If it's residential, we'll try to target like a block, so we can tackle it at once, because residential buildings in New York, they tend to be maybe like 1,000 square foot. It's pretty small job for just doing one roof, so we try to do
in terms of scaling from painting roofs, I see that there's a whole bunch of people focused on the rooftop. Yeah. As Anne said, I think competition for roof space, right? Roof real estate. So there was Danny Kennedy, who was supposed to be on the panel and unfortunately couldn't join us because he missed his flight, but he's doing solar panels on rooftops. And then there's people who are putting green gardens on rooftops, and you're painting rooftops. So do you see one day that maybe you're a channel for doing all of those things depending on the roof?
I don't know if we want to go into that, but I can tell you that it's definitely, there is some sort of like push and pull between the different roofs. But actually there are certain ways that you can combine them. So let's say you want PV panels, but you can have a white roof underneath the PV panels, and it actually helps cool the PV panels so that it performs better. Or you can have a green roof, and then there are certain like structural limitations for green roofs. So maybe you can only have a green roof in a certain area of the roof, and you can have a white roof elsewhere. There's also blue roofs, which most people don't know about. It's kind of like a pond on your roof. It catches rainwater. That can also be white. So that will help in the sense that it would reflect sunlight, and it would also, when it rains, it will be the water would evaporate, and that would also help cool.
So Anne, in the spirit of collaboration, what advice would you give Priscilla, who's just made her commitment last year, is now on stage with us? Who should she be talking to? Are there other experts or other companies that she should be working with?
You read my mind, Peggy. Yeah, I think that one of the key things is that every design project represents trade-off. Whether it's just a rooftop or a whole building or a city block or a whole community, there are always design trade-offs, and it's one of the things that makes design such an enormous opportunity. It's endlessly stimulating and challenging because we have to weigh multiple objectives, multiple goals, multiple players. And this is a great cue for one of the things that I'm very passionate about right now, which is something called integrated design. How many people of you have heard about integrated design? Okay, you can count, that's all right. A relatively small number, so I'll give a really quick overview. Basically, in the building industry, the way we normally do things is in a relay race, a handoff fashion. So owner has idea, hands off to architect. Architect crafts design, quote, design, hands off to structural engineer, says, make it stand up. And the structural engineer says, okay, if you say so, and does his or her best. hands off to mechanical engineer and says, okay, make it cool and warm as appropriate. And the mechanical engineer says, oh, God help me, I'll do my best, right? So each one in sequence, each discipline is asked, in effect, to compensate for the oversights or downright errors of the past, those who have already
Are they
had
talking to each other?
hands-on. No, they generally don't. I mean, there's a little bit of communication, but it tends to be, you know, it's like I'm handing them a baton. It's like, oh, you tug back a little bit. It's a very ineffective form of communication. What we found in the green building community is we optimize building design through collaboration. And we refer to that as integrated design or integrated project delivery. And this means essentially everybody who's going to touch that building, from idea to handing the keys over and people walking in, should be involved in the design and construction process. And by the way, design doesn't stop when construction starts. There's still design that continues, so that we have the benefit of all the discipline, all the knowledge, all the insights, all the brainstorming. One of the things that I learned during the development of Lead for Homes, which, by the way, we weren't building a building, we were building a system and a process, was, oh, this is an integrated design process. And I learned that no matter how smart the individuals were who were involved, what we accomplished collectively, working in an integrated fashion, was much, much more powerful. And for instance, if we would be more or less getting settled on a certain idea, and a member of our committee would be sitting there going, I don't know. My job as the chair was to say, okay, you know, Ron, what's bugging you? I can see this isn't sitting right. Inevitably, that person had a critical piece that the rest of us were missing. And so it's really, really important to bring in all the disciplines. And one of the things I'm really excited about seeing you all here today is all the awardees are teams. This is awesome. You guys are already exhibiting intuition about the fact that you know that you need resources beyond yourself for teamwork. So
Aren't you making a commitment too?
yes, as a matter of fact, she's the straight man here. My organization did make a commitment as part of this. We were not required to, but I was very excited about this idea. I'm working, one of the organizations that I advise is a company called iLive. They're a software development company. They've developed a collaboration, a web-based collaboration platform that's presently being used to manage all the 12,000 plus certification projects that are in the LEED pipeline on the LEED or the USGBC or Green Building Certification Institute side of the fence. So all those LEED certifications, I know there's some folks here from UC San Diego, for example, who are getting projects here on campus LEED certified. Those projects get submitted, and then there are people on the other side of that pipeline who have to manage that certification process. So we have 12,000 projects, hundreds of thousands of individuals, millions of pieces of information that are all being managed in this collaboration platform. And what it does is it takes institutional knowledge, systematizes it, so that we can become much more effective at executing complex projects without being overcome by complexity. So our commitment is to make this collaboration platform with a woven-in integrated design process available to student teams who commit to using integrated design. So I want to hear from any of you who are interested in doing that, because we'd like to field 10 teams in our pilot semester, which will be this fall.
Priscilla?
I'd like to add something about collaboration. I think as commitment makers, it's really important that you guys have a good team. You're only as good as your team. And I think that it's really great to have a focus in environmental protection or whatever it is your expertise is, but you also, as starting a nonprofit or a small business, you need to know all sorts of aspects. And I find that what's really great about White Tops is that we have members like Katrina, who is in charge of she's the treasurer, and we have members that focus on environmental issues. We have members that focus on, business management. So everyone has their expertise, and you need to know a little bit of everything. You need to know a little bit of law and how to run a business. So that's a good advice.
So the key message is collaborate, multiply.
Yeah, so something we're not touching on is that building science is fairly complex, and it is not as simple as we'd all like to feel it is. And I'll give an exact example, but I won't use New York because I know you guys are doing it in New York. But for doing roofs white, and I'll pose the question to the audience. I know the answer already. I think so does Ann, and probably you do. Let's say we're in Minneapolis. We're at the school district. They don't have air conditioning. They don't use the buildings in the summer. Should they make those roofs white or not? No, that's exactly right. In fact, by making them white, their CO2 would go up and their heating bill would go up, not down. So in fact, what seems like a really simple thing to do can be complex, and I'm glad you mentioned ROI. You know, you really have to come in, analyze the building, model the building, go into eQuest to DOE2, look at what the impact's going to be, and then say, yes, you're going to get your money back quickly, or no, you should never do this. And this is true with windows as well. That is that, you know, people talk about, oh, I know, I'm going to put a film on my window. Well, that's great if you're in the southern parts of this country where you've got a lot of cooling degree days. But if you're in an area where you've got heating degree days, it would actually make your heat bill go up and not down, because in fact you want that solar gain in the winter, not the opposite way around. So you really need to look at the building science. These are two simple examples. Now, while that sounds complicated, it really means there's opportunity, because you can't go into this, you know, without a lot of IQ points at the helm. Because it does take time, it does take a collaboration, it does take a lot of expertise around the table to figure out what region are you operating in, what are you trying to accomplish, how can you accomplish it best, how can you give them an ROI, and it turns out there's thousands of things you get to do. It sounds
like information technology, information transparency can really be your friend.
Well, it can all be your friend, and remember, we're building buildings basically the same way we did 100+ years ago. So there's lots of opportunity, but it's complex, because if it were really easy, someone would have done it 100 years ago, and they didn't. So it is complex, and it takes sort of really smart people like this and others that have really looked at these fields for a long time to say, okay, let's analyze that situation, let's make the trade-offs, and let's find out how we can really give a great ROI.
Yeah. Go ahead, Priscilla.
I'm glad you brought that up, because actually at White Tops what we do is we put temperature monitors on the roof so we can like get quantitative difference of before and after painting the roof, so we can see, you know, what are the temperatures like when the roof is gray or when the roof is black, and then what is it like when it's white, and that way we can get some numbers to show like owners that, you know, you're actually saving this much. I mean, your home is being cooled this much, and you know that could lead to this much savings, so that it's not just.
You know, it's interesting. The person that I'm staying with here in San Diego said they just had a smart meter installed in their house, and a lot of the people with solar rooftops are disappointed when that happens, because they used to be able to enjoy the meter spinning backwards, and now they don't get that enjoyment. So a really good book that I recommend is called The Nudge, and it's about sort of how you can set up user interface, so to speak, so that it encourages certain behavior.
I wanted to comment on this too. This is a great point. We need to be really measuring, monitoring the performance of buildings. I know Michael Murray, who started Lucid Design Group, started that as a student project at Oberlin, and has really been very instrumental in moving forward the idea of keeping track of the performance of buildings. And that's something that, again, students can do in their own campus buildings. Also, I think one of the very legitimate criticisms that's been levied against LEED, particularly LEED for commercial buildings, not for LEED for homes, is that the energy performance that's predicted is not necessarily being delivered. And so we need to get much more sophisticated, both in tracking that performance and also using more sophisticated energy predictive devices. And one of the things we're doing with our integrated design interface in the collaboration tool is create a plug-in to Energy Plus, which has been developed with DOE funds by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, but is not very widely deployed. So part of what we're after is getting more people using better modeling tools through this process.
Yeah, and I would just add, you're right. When you commission a building, the day you commission is typically the best it ever performs. The next day, someone walks up, turns the heater on for a party, and leaves it on for 3.5 years, and it's running all summer, all winter. You laugh, but it really happens, right? And so when we're now in over 100 buildings with Surace Energy Manager, and when we've done that, we're actually recommissioning the building every 5 minutes. So in fact, it's as good and then better than even humans could commission it, and then it stays that way. There's no way you can let it drift off. So this sort of energy drift is something common in buildings, and the more we develop these monitoring and management tools, and especially tools that drive it through algorithms, the more we can keep it performing in tune to its very best that it could ever be, and that's really, really key going forward.
So could I ask you to thank the panelists for their great discussion and their great remarks? We're going to take some questions from the audience. So does anybody have a question?
Lots.
Can you stand up? Say your name again, even though you got a commitment.
I think they're going to bring you a mic, too.
Hello, my name is Hong, and we are with the commitment of energy efficiency in action. And this question goes to Kevin with Surace Materials. And my question is, what's the level of detail that your monitoring systems, like the management tools that you say, what's the optimal amount of specification of like the details that we need? Because there's a level that we need, but beyond that,
that's a fantastic question. We've got buildings that have one sub-meter outside each building. So an entire college campus, for instance, with who cares, 30, 50, 100, 200 buildings, that has 1 meter on each building. And there is gain to be found there, just looking at each building. But then you got to go in and dig deeper. We've got other buildings. We have 5,000 data points in one building. Happens to be a LEED Platinum building. We know when every damper is open and closed. We know when every compressor is running, what the kilowatt hours it's pulling. Every piece of data you could possibly get. The answer, the optimal, would probably be in between, because while we're going to save more energy with more data, the payback on getting 5,000 data points every 5 minutes is more difficult to pencil out. So somewhere much more than one per building, but probably much less than 5,000. So depending on the size of the building, tens or hundreds of data points can really give you access to all of the HVAC and all the lighting, and the ability, our system can also control that. So not only can we take the data in, run it through algorithms, but then push it back out and automatically control it, and the facilities people just stand back and watch it happen.
Probably depends on what you're really trying to do.
Yeah.
It does, but there's an optimum payback. You're right. It's a great question.
Can I piggyback on that too? It also means you need to be careful that all the gizmos that you put in to measure and monitor the data don't use more energy than what you're saving in the process. And I say that from experience because that happened on a project I was working on. They were planning to incorporate a very, very sophisticated monitoring system and found out exactly that. And so they very much backed off to a more modest monitoring process for that building.
I've also heard that energy efficiency improvements are sort of double-sworded edge, because the more energy you save, the more the owner might think they could use energy.
Yeah, that does happen. Not only that, I want to tie to this monitoring piece. We've been able to monitor energy in buildings for 20 years. A lot of the monitoring has not always paid off in energy savings, because monitoring gives you screens that people look at. And now you're relying on people to say, what do I do? And then you get more sophisticated analytics that create scatter plots. And now you're hoping that someone who came up through the organization into facilities can look at the upper right-hand corner of a scatter plot and say, aha, I can see that compressor cycling on number 22 in room 45 is a little too high. They're not going to find it. So we've really needed to take that jump as we have the last few years and bring in algorithms to start managing these processes much better than humans. That's where you see the savings come in, more than giving humans more screens to look at.
Well, actually, there are some devices that do that. They tell you at different times of the day how much energy costs, so that you can, I think in that way, people automatically get the idea that if I use less energy at this time, I'll save more money.
Yeah, but in a large commercial building, with 500 HVAC units, it turns out, without algorithms, it's not. Yes, and we show the cost too. In fact, you could drill down and say that unit on that roof in that building way on the other side of campus is using this much today. But these algorithms look at the weather and say, I'm not going to turn on that building until 6:45. but tomorrow it's going to be 625 because the weather forecast is a little different. I mean, that's the level we're at today at World Class.
I'm going to try and fit in
Yeah, go
another question. Okay, sir, stand up. Your name?
Thank you all again for your comments. My question is in regards to building retrofits. And specifically, my question is, how practical is it to, instead of just upgrading equipment such as lighting, how practical is it to incorporate things like natural things like daylighting into existing buildings? Is it feasible to for instance knock down a wall so that you can let sunlight in through a particular side of the building? Are things like that feasible, or are we going to have to increasingly rely on things like more efficient lights? Albeit
Capital intensive.
Fewer of them.
Maybe Anne, can you answer that?
Well, the answer, by the way, this is, again, I feel like I'm set up for all my favorite questions. Does everybody know what the answer to every green building question is?
It depends.
Thank you. It depends. I mean, it's going to depend on the building, the context, the resources available, the community, the surroundings, the physical integrity of the structure. So, but this is where it's a design problem, right? So, and one key thing that I wanted you guys to walk away from here with is that there's a hierarchy of ways to intervene in a system that have more and less power. I don't know if you are familiar with the work of Donella Meadows, but she wrote a seminal paper on this, 12 ways to intervene in a system. I can't remember 12, I can't remember 4, and my friend Bill Reed, who's very influential in this field too, has distilled it to 4. Most powerful, mindset. Second most powerful, processes. Third most powerful, tools. Technologies are at the bottom of the food chain. And so that's why I want you guys to think about process and mindset. If you can think creatively and adopt integrated processes, the tools and the technologies will fall into place.
That's why the Cosmo Girl centerfold is actually quite important. Okay, yes.
I'll work on that.
Thank you very much for an informative panel. Really enjoyed it. My name is Mark Orlowski, and my question has to do again with energy efficiency and bringing this to scale, bringing retrofits and upgrades to scale. Because I read a McKinsey consulting report from 2 years ago that found that there's an ability to save $1.2 trillion worth of money through efficiency and retrofits, but it's going to take $500 billion worth of investment to do it. And there's energy service companies out there, there's other options, but they're clearly not bringing it to scale anywhere near what we need. What we're investing maybe tens of billions of dollars a year in energy efficiency.
I'll answer it real quickly. This is the first cost problem. It's been a problem for 30 years. It continues to be a problem. Solar solved it in many areas with what's called a PPA, the power purchase agreement. Basically, put solar on your roof, doesn't cost you a dime. You just buy your electricity from the solar guy instead, and maybe it's a penny cheaper per kilowatt hour. That's how they solved it. That same method has yet to find a way to work on the efficiency side for a variety of reasons, including the fact that people change the usage of their buildings and a variety of other things. So there are challenges, but until we solve first cost, we will never retrofit 5 million commercial buildings and 110 million homes. It's just not going to happen. First cost is the #1 objection. Quick story about the Empire State Building. Tony Malkin and his wife are some of the biggest supporters of NRDC. So these are very environmentally driven people. And yet he didn't do his building until he could get a 3-year payback and 38% savings, well, almost 40% savings. And $2, fortunately, he had the money to do it. But most of the building owners that we talk to go, wow, you can give me my money back in 3 years, but I only have, $86K, which is my utility bill for next month. I don't have, a year and a half of utility bills to give you. So I don't have the money. So we got to solve first cost. It's very hard to do.
Yeah, we have to bring the technology prices down. Yes.
One of the things I've noticed through the panel speaking, and thank you guys very much, is Priscilla, you seem to have this very we can do it attitude. And again, a lot of what you guys are speaking is from experience of kind of the tragedy of what you guys have experienced and the pushback and everything. Priscilla, how do you think kind of the youthful attitude that a lot of us here have at CGIU is going to help you maybe in areas that the previous generation hasn't been able to explore?
I think being a little bit ignorant is actually a good thing. You just have to run with your idea. If you know full on what you're getting yourself into, it's a lot of work. It's tough. There's a lot of obstacles, but you just have to tackle it one at a time. And I think that's something that, you know, is great that the youth has, is that motivation, that passion to just go with it. Run with your idea.
And look, I mean, we built a company that's got 450 people in it and did so over the last 5 or 6 years or so. So I would say we were absolutely walking through walls. But we now know that if you take down that wall over there, the building may fall, you may increase your energy usage. So we know enough to say we want to walk through that wall. We're going to find ways to do it. But the building science says we had better get experts like Ann and 20 other people around the table to make sure we do it in a collaborative fashion so we know what we're doing.
Right.
Because you can't go into it blind. But no, please take all your energy and put it into these spaces. Absolutely. Don't lose any of that.
And as a student, you should tackle all your resources. You know, your schools, they have great resources. They have great libraries. The professors, people you know, your friends, everyone can help, or everyone knows someone else that can help you.
I think one of the tremendous benefits that you guys have is you're living in community in an incredibly powerful way you will never probably experience again in your lives. So you have a huge opportunity to strengthen that community and tap that community. So you have the benefit of the passion and energy of youth. And one of the things that, you know, maybe it takes getting to be half a century to realize is that everybody has to work where they are most effective, where their passion lies. So you could agonize for a long time about, well, should I do project A, project B, project C? Go with where your personal energy is. That's always where you're going to be the most effective. And if you don't have specific skills, that's where your teams come in.
And I'm going to add to that because as a nonprofit, our nonprofit JUICE, Joint U.S.-China Collaboration on Clean Energy, is a very small NGO that has been able to do great things in 4 years. And I consider myself in sort of the younger generation. I like to say I'm 27, right, Kevin?
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do like to say I'm 27,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So, but the way that we accomplish it is we realize that today's global challenges are cross-sector, cross-border. You know, innovation today is a global supply chain. And so the skill set that you need today to create great change, radical transformation of society, is different than the former generations where we had institutions that were focused on status quo or incremental change, right? And so the soft skills of convening, of catalyzing, of creating that nightclub effect for cool things like smart grid, right? Getting people to get to the same table, understanding that everybody uses different vocabulary depending on what kind of stakeholder they are. They have different incentives to get to that table, but you as that person in the center of the table, moderating and facilitating, that you can harness that change. It's the multiplier effect, the leverage, it's the power of collaboration. Today, 1 + 1 doesn't equal to 3, it equals to 11. And that's the power of this generation. That's the power of Twitter. That's the power of any type of social media. So, one in the back, way back, yes.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Miranda Coe, and I have a question for Priscilla about the maintenance of the white top. So, Professor Ramanathan at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego had said by 2020 that the Himalayas glaciers, all of the permanent ice will melt because of the black soot. And the reason for that is that black soot has both a positive effect and also a negative effect, which means that while it reflects ultraviolet energy coming in from space, it also absorbs energy, and when the black soot gets on top of the Himalayas glacier, it accelerates the rate of global warming. And the reason why I'm asking is because in the US, we get the daily gift of the wind coming in from Asia, which is currently the #1 emitter of black soot, and we get that every day. And I'm thinking, how do you maintain the white top? Because you can paint every roof all you want, but when the black soot comes around and they stay on back to the white roof, wouldn't your effort be wasted if they come back on? Priscilla?
You'll be surprised, actually. The roofs have stayed pretty white. There's a mineral in it called titanium dioxide, and that actually has kind of like a self-cleaning agent, and it absorbs pollutants. So it actually, in a way, helps clean the air. And there's also certain products certain types of paints that are known to shed water really efficiently. So that's also a way that the roofs are kept clean. But we do recommend cleaning your roof every so often, maybe like once a year.
You'd be surprised what you have to do as a homeowner every year. Okay, the guy in the blue shirt.
I'm wondering, we're talking about the anatomy of a building, but if perhaps the physiology of a building is considered in the building industry, how buildings can clean our water, clean our air, as you mentioned, provide maybe food for us based on using solar panels and vertical farming, and if that conversation of the biology of a building is going on at all amongst your peers in the building industry.
Very definitely so. I mean, we're seeing a lot of innovation in terms of making not just green roofs, but green walls, and definitely urban agriculture on rooftops. It's an interesting question you raised, too, because there's also the metabolism of a building. But a building by itself doesn't actually have a metabolism. It's only when it's inhabited. And so one of the interesting challenges that we deal with is the interplay between the structure and its inherent characteristics and the occupants and their behaviors. And I think there's another enormous opportunity out there, not just to talk about what can we do to fix buildings, but what can we do to fix the people who inhabit them and who adopt behaviors and attitudes that are not supportive of our climate change efforts. And there are technologies that can, by making us more aware of the consequences, bring that forward. But we also need much broader social change in terms of understanding that it is we and how we act and what we think we need and what we want that drives a lot of our problems.
Right, like tackle it from the source. I mean, you can have as many PV panels as you want, but I don't feel like that's the right way to tackle the problem. Like, you should also, reduce your energy usage so that, because there isn't that much space on the roof. There isn't that much, we can't cover that many fields with PV panels. I mean, we should tackle things in many ways.